You tell my clients at the planning phase, oh yeah, you're going to give up 5% of everything you've worked your whole life for just because we need some paperwork. They're going to go, that's crazy. And that's when I really kind of dedicated myself in my future practice to helping people avoid problems ahead of time by getting things squared away. So that's really what we're kind of talking about today. So let me just take a quick poll. They're not going to see on the camera. How many people would prefer that the government decide things for them and have a government process to do it? Nobody. Nobody. Okay. That's kind of what happens if you're not putting in place your own documents. And the fact is, there are a lot of documents out there that can put the power back into you and also empower the people you want to make decisions and handle things for you in a crisis. So that's really what I'm covering today. And we've got 45 minutes. There's no way I'm going to talk about strictly legal documents for 45 minutes, so I will take whatever questions as we're moving along. I'll try to make sure we're covering everything. All right, so there are what I call the big 5 documents. These are really the basics that every adult should have. The first one, this is a last will and testament. So that's what most people hear about for estate planning. It's the last will. It's when I pass on, I want this. I mean, you probably see on TV this big dramatic thing where the attorney's reading out the will, and it doesn't really happen like that.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
But the will lists who gets what, when did they get it, here's this percentage, or here's this thing held in trust and whatnot. The will controls all of that, so you can put in place ahead of time. The main things, here's who I want my executor to be. This is the person who's going to make all of this stuff happen, wrap up any finances you have, and make sure that everybody gets what they're supposed to get and when. And then you're listing out, here's where everything goes. There may be a couple of miscellaneous things in there. I've seen attorneys put things for, if I have any minor children, here's where I want, who I want to be guardians and things like that. Here are some specific burial information, wishes and things like that. But that often goes into that last will and testament. So that's the document you hear about. Now here's the one thing that a lot of attorneys who handle the same type of work my grandmother went through for my grandfather's estate, the last will and testament means probate. So if anyone has ever said to you, oh, I have a last will and testament, my estate doesn't have to go through probate. No, that's entirely wrong. Probate actually is, here's what we do to execute that will. And so there's the court process. Now let me ask, has anybody here been an executor or administrator for an estate? Okay, so you've seen all the paperwork that has to go into it. You have to list every single account, what the balance was exactly on the date of death. It's not just, oh, well, the statement said, here's what, no, you need a written statement from the financial institution. Here's what the exact value was on the date of death. Then every single bill that gets paid, funeral bill, outstanding credit card debt, all of that stuff, you need documentation in terms of here's this invoice for it, or here's the statement, here's the check that was written, here's a copy of the canceled check afterwards, and everything has to balance down to the penny. How many people like that exercise? Okay, here's the one thing that I found. Engineers and accountants think probate's no big deal. It's just something with the way their brain gets trained for what they do that they think probate's no big deal, and for them it isn't. For most other people, it's being an executor is kind of considered the worst part-time job you're ever going to have. Okay, so, yes. Well, no, you do get paid.
Yeah.
You do get paid. They can, usually the benchmark is somewhere around 5% of whatever the assets are that are in probate. Now that's a lot, if you really think about it. Now, when you talk to the heirs, and there are attorneys that'll do this, well, look, we've got some paperwork. You can make us the executor or the administrator. We can handle all of it for you for 5% of the estate. They're going, well, okay, we're still getting 95%. We don't really have to do anything. Okay, not a bad deal. You tell my clients at the planning phase, oh yeah, you're going to give up 5% of everything you've worked your whole life for just because we need some paperwork. They're going to go, that's crazy. And I agree.
Planning an estate can be a frightening thing. And we intend to take advantage of that. At Land 'em, Fleece 'em, and Dump 'em, our attorneys are trained to push you to do estate planning with a last will and testament, which means your estate ends up in probate court. We might even suggest that we be the executor or hang on to the original of the will just so we can be in charge of running the whole estate after you die. This ensures that we maximize our bottom line at the expense of your heirs. Land 'em, Fleece 'em, and Dump 'em, attorneys at law. Old ideas to yield brand new legal fees.
Wait, is that truth filter on? Turn it off.
Get the actual facts in the course below.
Especially because it's that process that generally lasts. Now, I can say 6 months to a year and a half. It's usually a lot closer to a year. I've seen some very simple estates get wrapped up in 6 months, but sometimes there's just stuff that pops up. But when you have that last will and testament, it's kind of saying, yeah, we want it to go through probate court. We're going to talk about an alternative in a minute, but this is at least that one of the 5 basic documents that you want to have.